Inflammation is our body's response whenever something is going wrong. So Ayurveda is a preventive lifestyle. Ayurveda means the science of life. So it's really a guidebook and a blueprint on how you can look at your body, mind, and spirit in a way that brings them all into alignment. And so the Ayurvedic self-care rituals are a beautiful way to create little, tiny, mindful moments throughout the day that benefit the body. We forget that dirty feet actually means healthier gut and healthier body. And it's so simple and it's free. Mother Earth has an inflammation problem and we are the root cause of it. And what are we gonna do about it?
What if the aches, brain fog, fatigue, poor sleep, and digestive issues we blame on getting older aren't actually caused by aging at all? What if they're all connected by one common root cause, chronic inflammation? And perhaps the even bigger question is this: if inflammation is driving so many of today's chronic diseases, why aren't we talking more about preventing it instead of simply treating the symptoms? Today's guest has dedicated her career to understanding that connection. Dr. Shivani Gupta is an expert in Ayurveda, has a PhD focused on turmeric, is the founder of Fusionary Formulas, and the author of The Inflammation Code. After spending much of her childhood constantly ill and being prescribed antibiotics month after month, she decided there had to be another path. That search led her to India and the 5,000-year-old science of Ayurveda, a journey that transformed her own health and eventually became her life's work. In this episode, we talk about inflammation, gut health, sleep, stress, turmeric, nutrition, and simple habits that can support better health. We also explore the connection between our health and the health of our planet. And if you would like to explore Dr. Shivani's products, you can use the discount code HHP15 at fusionaryformulas.com. And now, let's dive into the conversation. I am Juan, and you're listening to Health, Happiness, and Planet podcast, a space for exploring simple, grounded ways to support well-being, feel more connected in everyday life, and better understand the relationship between our health and the planet we call home. In each episode, I'm joined by guests from around the world who share thoughtful perspectives on well-being, happiness, and living more holistically. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, Dr. Shivani, and welcome to the Health, Happiness, and Planet podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time. It's the first thing which I know that our listeners will be really interested to hear is what was your journey to get to where you are today, and what is your current mission that you're on?
Thank you for asking. So I grew up in America. I'm from Houston, Texas, but I grew up going to New Delhi, India every year of my life to see my cousins, to see my grandparents. And growing up, I started to notice that my body may be a little different from everyone else's. I was getting every single cold, every single sickness. I was constantly air sick, car sick, seasick. And by the time I hit high school, actually, I was given antibiotics every single month. Because in America, when you catch a cold, you just go to the doctor, they write you a prescription, you take it, it's antibiotics, and you get better. And that was kind of the running theory back in the 80s. Fast forward, by the time I got to college, I realized maybe taking stronger and stronger antibiotics every time I go to India or in the US isn't a good idea. But when I'd go to India, usually when I got a cold or had any issue, my grandma would just open up the spice cabinet and she'd treat me with spices like turmeric or ginger or special spices for the stomach like hing. And so I lived in these two worlds where you get sick in the US, you get a prescription. You get sick in India, you get some spices. Unless it's disastrous. And so by the time I got to college, when I would get sick, it would be, should we hospitalize this girl? She's so sick. And I remember being in India, going to the doctor, and at one point they were like, here's her prescription. It's an antibiotic and 12 medications for her side effects. And that was when this voice came out of me and said, no, we're not doing this anymore. There has to be a different approach to health. And I looked at my parents and I said, we're in this land of yoga and Ayurveda. And I think there's a different method that I have to use for my body. And so I went on a quest and I studied Ayurveda throughout India, going north, south, east, west, sitting at the feet of the gurus and just begging for answers. And Ayurveda had those answers for me. And I healed my body, healed my gut, learned all about how to build preventive health and build vibrant health at such a profound level. And I thought, this is what I'm here to teach the world. Like, everybody needs to know this thing. And so that's been my mission since I was a 20-year-old girl, since I discovered that treasure chest of knowledge and wisdom. And at that time, I was going to Babson College in Boston, and I was in a course called social entrepreneurship that I was in because one of my professors put me in it. He's like, I think you belong in this room. And when I sat in that class, I realized we can build ventures that are built around serving humanity, serving the planet, serving others, having a triple bottom line. It's not just about corporations or profit or those things. It's about a synergy. And so that's my mission, is to constantly create products and services and teachings and wisdom that serve all of humanity by teaching us Ayurveda fused with all the other sciences that I've studied to give us all a clear custom path towards the health that we all deserve.
Outstanding. Wow, that's so amazing to hear that journey where you could really compare two different poles. And just out of curiosity, because a lot of people who I know, they are just very much into that classical path of just taking antibiotics. And then at some point of time, when they start to realize that their bodies are just not working the way they should work, they start thinking, is there a way I can somehow reverse all of those antibiotics that I took, like perhaps all those heavy metals that came into our bodies? Does your body automatically, after a while, if you haven't taken any antibiotics for many years, does it somehow get rid of it? Or do you have to do something actively to get rid of all that residue that stayed in your body?
I think we have to take action. When it comes to the gut microbiome and gut health, I teach this entire system from India that's 5,000 years old called Ayurveda. And Ayurveda teaches us that we have such power when it comes to our health, but what you're talking about is that gut digestive fire. And so Ayurveda said it requires some effort. We can't just assume our gut's going to heal itself over time. I think back in the day we could have. Back when we didn't have a planet with so much of a toxic burden and so many stressors on the system, yes, over time a healthy diet could have healed us. But we're living through a moment in modern day life where just because I took antibiotics, maybe I took them last year for a surgery, or maybe I got really sick or had strep throat or a bacterial infection that required an antibiotic. I take them when I need to. But then afterwards, we must put a gut microbiome supportive diet, supplementation, prebiotic, probiotic plan in place to really heal and repair the gut. Because I do think back in the day, maybe thousands of years ago, we had the robustness within our soil and within our food to get there. And I don't think we are there anymore where we can just assume it.
Correct. For the listeners who are new to the word Ayurveda, could you give us just like a very simple definition? What is Ayurveda and how does it work?
So Ayurveda is a preventive lifestyle. Ayurveda means the science of life. So it's really a guidebook and a blueprint on how you can look at your body, mind, and spirit in a way that brings them all into alignment. So for example, we teach about your elemental design, your body type, and how that decides how you should run your day. We teach about circadian clock, circadian rhythm, as the rhythm we should all live by. We teach a lot about gut health and how gut health is your brain health, your mood, your immune system, all the things modern science is now proving, Ayurveda said 5,000 years ago. We teach a lot about your diet and how to eat a diet that's so nourishing to the entire system, so the system is supported. And then we teach a lot about self-care rituals that are there to help us detox on a daily basis so the body can stay clean, clear, and healthy. And then finally, we teach a lot about super herbs and super spices as that medicinal toolkit we can reach into as we need to stay supported. So it's truly a lifestyle, and I teach it as 6 pillars. And when I wrote my book recently that I just published, The Inflammation Code, in this book, I teach about those 6 pillars and how we can integrate this Ayurvedic lifestyle into our lives.
Outstanding. And what I really like that it first of all it's holistic, and second of all it's very also specific to the type of person who you are, and it's not
Yes.
like just one tablet fits all to say, oh, you have that type of thing, here, take this medicine, yeah, and then it's like it's
Correct.
supposed to help everybody, but it doesn't really work that way. And that it's the beauty and magic of getting to know Ayurveda and to see what is it that we have done so many hundreds and hundreds of years ago. How did we actually thrive as humans, as a species in the world before all of that came what we know today in the Western world and the medicine. Great. Thanks for putting some light there.
Yeah.
And one topic that I would like to ask a couple of questions on is something that maybe not everybody has heard about, and maybe not everybody knows what type of effect this has on our body, and it's about inflammation. Could you explain to us a little bit about inflammation and where does it come from, and how do we even know if we have it? That would be amazing.
Absolutely. So, inflammation is our body's response whenever something is going wrong. So, for example, if you fell, if you rammed your elbow into a door, your body would say, oh my gosh, she has hurt herself. We need to go send an immune response, figure out what that is, and heal it up fast. The body's mode is to stay in survival mode. Our body wants to survive. That's what it's going to respond to first. And so we call that acute inflammation. So if you hurt yourself, your body will send that response. It's there to heal it up and then move on. We don't need to keep sending immune cells and causing swelling and redness on the elbow once the issue is resolved. But we have a type of inflammation also that's called chronic low-grade persistent inflammation. And most people are struggling with this right now because the body is kind of under attack 24/7 now. We're living through a moment in society where between big food, big chemical, and everything else, at times there's a lot of decisions being made around our food supply, pesticides, the soil lacking the vitamins and minerals we need, the types of foods that are sold to us in stores that we're picking up thinking that it's food. I don't consider those things food. I consider them chemical combinations we should not eat. But when we eat a lot of things that don't belong in the body, imagine if today I won't name the brands, but let's say I ate a chip and let's say I drank a soda
Yeah.
and put them in my body. My body might say, those are poison. I don't know what to do with those. Those aren't food. And I don't even have time for my liver to detox and bind and get rid of what that is. I'm just going to park it in your fat cells and wait until you have space to detox and I have time to deal with it. And so the body kind of accumulates all this stuff. And unfortunately, as a society, most of us are creating this level of leaky gut, inflammation, autoimmune reaction in the system where we're kind of at a traffic jam. And we're assuming the body has it, that we can keep doing what we want to do as we're aging and it'll be fine. But that's not how it works. As we're aging, we're having more oxidative stress, more inflammation accumulate, more insulin resistance. We're in a lot of catch-22s, and we're also not repairing the gut as fast as we used to. And so most people say to me, I guess all these symptoms I have, I've got brain fog, my joints hurt, fatigue, headaches, bloating, indigestion. I just don't feel the same. I guess this is just aging. And I always say, it is not aging. It is inflammaging. This is inflammation making you feel like you're aging. And so anytime that voice crops up and you think, gosh, I guess this is just aging, I invite you to pause right there and say to your body, okay, what happened? What changed? What is different than last week that this voice is coming up inside of me? And I always think back to myself, what did you eat? How did you sleep? Have you been traveling? What did you shift in your lifestyle that could cause this to creep up? And sometimes it's not one thing. Sometimes it's over time. But our job is to unpack that and unwind that and address that chronic low-grade persistent inflammation that's literally like a forest fire inside of our bodies, wreaking havoc and causing damage and destroying us from the inside. I haven't met one person who hasn't said to me over the last decade or so, my mom has arthritis, my mom has joint pain, my mom needs to talk to you about turmeric and these things you talk about. And I think to myself, how is it that every single woman has joint pain? Like, what is that we're having a society, every single man after a certain age? These are all symptoms and signs. And then we also know that chronic inflammation leads to chronic metabolic disease. And so all the big diseases that are taking us after our 40s, 50s, and 60s, are all based in inflammation as well. So inflammation prevention should be the center core thought process we all have when it comes to our health.
That's right. And I think a lot of people in society think that it's in brackets normal because they saw maybe their parents, their grandparents they start saying, oh, I have pain here. Every time I sit down, I have to like make some kind of noises because it hurts. Yeah. And then you're thinking, well, that's normal. They're just getting older. So that when you start getting older, in brackets again, then if you have those same type of aches and pains, you think, oh yeah, well, I'm actually, as you mentioned, I'm just getting to become my grandfather. But they do not know that that doesn't have to be that way. You can still be a grandfather and not have any joint pain, for example.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And if somebody is already feeling some type of those symptoms that you're saying, like joint pain, or they're just feeling that brain fog, and is there a way that you can measure if there is inflammation in the body? And is there also maybe a marker that you can say, I have a little bit or a lot? So is there a way to measure that?
Absolutely. So when we go to the doctor, there is much deeper blood work that we can do, and different numbers can indicate that things are going in the wrong direction. One would be testing for HSCRP. That is an inflammatory marker in the body. Another is pay attention to your cholesterol, A1C. As insulin is rising, these numbers will start to rise as well. A lot of times we think of all the insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance markers as being just about prediabetes and diabetes. But that's not true. When everything is trending up, that's definitely not ideal.
Yeah. So that would be then one way of that one would just get the blood work done to see if those markers are really showing inflammation or not in the body. And for those who are just right now wondering, do I actually have it? Do I need to get it tested? What would be, I know you already mentioned a couple at the beginning of the show, but what would be some of those signs that if I would have inflammation, what would I notice in my body?
Sure. So most people tell me when they wake up in the morning, all of a sudden they don't feel like getting out of bed. So that's like that morning fatigue. You're tired. You don't even have the energy to jump out of bed. You're not joyful to get out of bed. So that's one sign. Another big one is when you put your feet on the ground, how do you feel? Do you feel like, oh my gosh, my feet hurt, my legs hurt, my knees hurt? This is going to take a minute. That feeling of like weariness and your joints don't feel like they're just ready to go. That's an assumption that we're aging. So when I feel that way, I'm like, what changed? What's happening? What's going on here? That's also a sign, because anytime we've got our joints that aren't feeling as good, that's a sign of inflammation. So fatigue, joint pain, brain fog. A lot of times we hit our 40s and people are saying, I can't remember everything, not remembering names, can't focus as well. We're feeling a cognitive decline. That's inflammation. A lot of times people say, I can't eat the same foods. All of a sudden, I can't eat dairy. I can't eat gluten. All sorts of foods that I used to eat that were just fine, all of a sudden don't feel as good. That's a pretty good sign that we've got leaky gut, gut dysbiosis, or inflammation going on in the system. The system is being more reactive. And then finally, frequent headaches, pain. Any type of pain, redness, or swelling is inflammation. And so if you start to feel that way, a lot of times people are going to the doctor and learning all of a sudden they are mounting an autoimmune type of beginning of disease or issue. That's a sign of inflammation in the system as well. Why is the body suddenly attacking itself? There's miscommunication. There's inflammation going on. There's an immune system in overreactive mode. And so that's why I love to explain that we can have such a preventive plan when it comes to inflammation. We can build our lifestyle around reducing inflammation, and then we don't have to struggle with it at that level.
Fantastic. People listening to this, they're probably thinking like, wow, I think I sometimes have that, or I might have that. Yeah. So it really probably addresses quite a lot of people out there. And if that happens, if you already know, okay, I think I might have had one of those things this week, what are usually the root causes of inflammation? I mean, some of them you've mentioned, it's the type of food we're eating. Could also maybe even your thoughts that are not really helping, depending on how you think, could that also cause an inflammation in the body, for example?
For sure. So when we think of inflammation, we think of it as diet first. What are you eating? What are you putting into the body? Is your diet made up of mostly chemical foods, foods made of processed ingredients, seed oil, those ultra-processed ingredients that are so inflammatory to the system? Is your diet full of sugar, alcohol, gluten, dairy, red meat sometimes, depending on who you are, although red meat is not an issue for most people. But if your digestive fire is not strong, what are the foods you're eating that are triggering inflammation in your system? And so that's why when you go to an integrative practitioner, they're usually going to put you on some sort of elimination diet to start to pull out those foods that might be causing all the problems in the first place. So diet is usually first. Then we start to talk about sleep and circadian rhythm. How is your sleep? Sleep is when we clear inflammation. And so most people are not sleeping on the circadian clock. And in Ayurveda, we teach that that's 10 to 2, the top of the clock. And so if you're not sleeping 10 to 2, you're not going to clear inflammation overnight. That's the window when we clear inflammation, the lymphatic system, the glymphatic system, which is your lymphatic system of your brain. So sleep is the second one. Third, how is your gut health? Is your gut health awesome, robust, strong, diverse? Is it able to process and assimilate everything you're putting into your body or not? Because if gut health is not strong, we're not going to have a great end result of absorption of nutrition and or processing what we throw in there. But you brought up a really beautiful point, which is, does our mental thoughts, our mind, or our emotions affect our body and our inflammation? And so when I was writing my book, I got through writing about everything: diet, gut, sleep, circadian, the herbs, the self-care rituals. I was so excited to kind of put all my big programs into one book. And when I got to the end, I realized I had one more point to make. And that is a term I coined: mental inflammation. If we have mental inflammation, constant stress, emotional stress, mental stress that is eating away at us all the time, that will manifest as physical inflammation. And once it manifests as that physical inflammation in the body, that's also going to impact our mental health, because we know that we have a gut-brain axis. We have a nervous system, an autonomic nervous system, that's either parked in parasympathetic or sympathetic. Fight or flight, it's either parked in rest and digest or fight or flight. Correct. And that's really important to understand. So yes, can our mind impact our stress and inflammation? All day long. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons as a society we're inflamed. Yes, our food and our land and all those issues are there, but then you have a whole category of people who are obsessed with their health and their wellness, who are eating fresh, clean food, cooking it in the healthy oils, have an awareness of their gut health, are sleeping well. But if you are stressed 24/7 and you don't find ways to consistently give yourself mental breaks, sacred pauses, mindful moments, a lot of these things that I teach, or just reduce that total stress burden, you will consistently create the inflammation you're trying to escape through your good, healthy habits.
Yeah. Wow, that's a nice summary, putting all those pieces together, because there really is not just one aspect that is causing that. This is many different aspects, and you've covered that pretty well there in your book. And I'm just wondering now, a person who does a lot of sports and goes, let's say, to the gym every single day, does 3-hour workouts, could that also cause inflammation?
You know, overdoing wear and tear on the body can absolutely cause inflammation. Any athlete, pro athlete knows that, because as they're pushing their body to the max, they're also creating a lot of pain, a lot of joint pain. They have to create space for recovery. And so I've worked with a lot of athletes who said, what can I do to recover faster? Because I want to get back in there and do more. They always want more. And I totally understand. I love to lift and work out hard. But we have to have this awareness and understanding of what are our seasons. That's why in Ayurveda we teach circadian rhythm. If you're in a push season, are you going to give yourself the recovery season to get back from it? But yes, absolutely. Going too hard and too fast against the body will create wear and tear, and we will create chronic inflammation. And so we have to have a very robust plan to support the system if we're going to do that. Diet, exercise, sleep, movement that maybe is not the form of exercise we're doing. So it might be yoga, pranayama, which is deep breathing, meditation. Like there's a lot we can do for recovery if we're going to be that aggressive in our exercise.
Perfect. And it's really good to know the balance. You have to know, okay, if I did a really heavy workout today at the gym, then maybe tomorrow I will just do a little bit of stretching, yoga, meditation. Yes. And then really the balance, I think, is where it's the beauty. and you need to know your body pretty well to see when am I pushing myself too far, and what other things are happening at the same time. Do I have now maybe a stressy situation at work, or do I have maybe some other issues I'm dealing with, and maybe I should crank it down a bit with my exercise routine, and so that again I can get more balance in all of those categories that you mentioned. And the book that you wrote, which is the Inflammation Code, summarizes quite a lot of points. And could you also share with us some other highlights that you might have in that book?
For sure. So in the book, I spoke about the Ayurvedic self-care rituals. And I love teaching about those because we all have busy lives. Modern day life is busy. There's a lot going on, a lot of responsibilities, even as we have more and more technology that's supposed to save us time, even AI, which saves me a ton of time. That doesn't mean that there's not more and more that we're putting on the same plate. And so the Ayurvedic self-care rituals are a beautiful way to create little tiny mindful moments throughout the day that benefit the body. So we teach things as simple as using a copper tongue scraper in the morning. That's a gold standard in Ayurveda that we love to use, because when you use a copper tongue scraper and you gently scrape the tongue in the morning 7 to 14 times, we teach that all the organs of the body are reflected on the tongue, just like in reflexology, they're reflected on the bottom of your feet. And so by gently scraping the tongue, you're actually scraping all the organs of the body. And you're removing something that we call ama, or the toxin residue that accumulates in our system over time. When we have too much ama, or this toxin residue, the body looks at it and says, okay, I think that's enemy number one. I'm going to mount an inflammatory reaction because there's just too much gunk in this system and we have to do something about it. Not realizing that inflammation is not the solution. We really need to just clean and clear. And so Ayurveda teaches so much about gentle detoxing so the body can stay optimal. And it's interesting when you tie these topics back to the planet, we teach about the circadian rhythm. And so Ayurveda's main point is we come from nature. We must live in rhythm with nature. And when we do so, our body is at ease. That's when we can be in ease and flow. And so we teach that when you fight against the rhythm of nature, you're going to fight uphill. It's like trying to swim upstream, up a river, up a mountain. And if you want ease and flow and health, it's really about flowing downstream with the river of life. That's where diet, sleep, exercise, gut health, all these different topics come in, is really finding that alignment. And so when we talk about health, it's about understanding you are made of the planet is made of you, and those nature's elements make up who you are. And when you understand your individual elements, your body constitution, then you can start to navigate life differently. And so we teach that there's 3 different body types. I call them the elemental designs. Ayurveda called them the doshas. But in my book, I realized I can't give everyone 100 Sanskrit words. It'll drive everybody crazy, so I simplified many of them. And elemental design shows that we're one of 3 body types. Vata, which is air and ether. Pitta, which is fire with water. Or Kapha, which is earth and water. And when we learn our body type, which you can take that quiz on my website at drshivani.com, but when you take that quiz and come to understand yourself better, then you can navigate your circadian clock, your diet, and what is really best for your body type. And that just makes things easier when we're working with our body instead of against it.
Outstanding. Well, I think I'm going to take that test after our conversation today to see what body type am I, because I've heard about that very often, but I have never really gone a little bit deeper just to see, okay, what fits best to me.
Exactly.
And there's something that I just realized right now that you were mentioning about the copper tongue scraper. So I use a tongue scraper every morning, but it's not out of copper. I think it's just out of plastic. So what is the difference if I'm using copper or plastic?
So we prefer that everything be using good, healthy metals. Copper was a metal that they discovered thousands of years ago to be more antibacterial, but also remineralizing. And so copper might not be good for everybody. Some of us are high copper in our bodies. Our copper zinc ratio needs to be better managed. But most of us tolerate a copper tongue scraper. It's a 10-second, 20-second health habit. But when you scrape the tongue with that copper tongue scraper, we would prefer steel, copper, silver, any metal over using plastic, especially because nowadays we know so much about plastic and microplastics. We didn't even know about that before because we didn't have the plastics available. But copper is almost self-cleaning. So in my case, I just rinse it in 2 seconds and it's ready to go for the next day. We even teach habits like drinking out of a copper cup. So we're big fans of copper in Ayurveda.
And the other key word you mentioned was the circadian rhythm. So I'm not sure if maybe all the listeners are acquainted with that word. So how would you explain the circadian rhythm and how to be more in line with it?
Absolutely. So Ayurveda said we must live in rhythm with nature. And we are these circadian beings. And what's interesting is in modern day life, we are kind of breaking that tenet and that law with the universe. And we think we can just wake up when we want, eat when we want, sleep when we want. It doesn't matter. And I even look at my teenagers sometimes and I'm like, you may not break all these rules forever. You have a lot of resilience when you're in your teenage years. Oftentimes we hit our 30s, 40s, 50s, and we're like, oh my gosh, I have to go to bed on time, or this is not going to work for me. And so circadian just means living according to nature's clock. And what's great is, and I have a whole chapter in my book on circadian, modern day science is proving we have circadian cells in every single cell of our body. Our body knows what time it is. And so the fact that your body knows it's morning where you are, Shivani, you are meant to do your morning activities or lunch or dinner, means that the more we can live in that circadian rhythm, all of a sudden life gets easier. Our body knows what to expect. Our digestive enzymes, digestive fire knows what to expect. Our body can be less stressed out because we're giving it a rhythm that it can trust. And so much of the Ayurvedic wisdom is really giving us these subtle tools. And they sound little, but when you start to live by them, they're so impactful. I lived my whole life as such a sick child. I thought by my 20s, how am I ever going to do anything great in this lifetime? Even when I studied social entrepreneurship, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to change the whole planet. I want the whole planet to know nobody has to suffer the fate I see in my family of diabetes and the end effects of that. I saw all my grandparents struggle with heart disease, diabetes, stroke, heart attack, quadruple bypass, leg amputation. And I thought, this has to change. And so Ayurveda teaching something as simple, it's actually a big topic, but as simple as circadian clock, just means if we can learn how to live in that rhythm, how to honor sleep, how to honor the morning as our time to invest in ourselves. We teach about morning as the time to meditate, do yoga, journal. Really, it's about collecting peace for yourself before you start the day. Now we know that according to blue light, red light, we're meant to go outside and see the sunlight. We've just gotten so far away from these natural life practices because we're living in this modern day life. I live in the United States. If my kids didn't have to go to school, I would just get up and get to my desk and start working. But because I have these health practices, I choose, get up, go for a 10-minute walk. Do not start your day until you've seen the sky and engaged with nature and connected with nature. We teach to have your lunch between 10 and 2. We call that the pitta time of day. And when you live in Spain and Europe and abroad, everyone already lives by a very beautiful rhythm culturally. But when you come to the West, we have all sorts of, I shouldn't say West, but when you come to America, for example, North America, sometimes we have these rhythms of one meal a day. We're going to eat when we decide we're going to eat. But the body has its own natural rhythm. And so eating between 10 to 2, we say, is when your digestive fire is the strongest to absorb and assimilate the hardest to digest foods or your superfoods, for example. So then when you extrapolate that to nighttime, honoring 10 to 2 on that same clock is important because that's when the digestive fires and all the fires come out to clean and clear and detox the body. And so there's just a lot of beautiful wisdom inside of Ayurveda. And I like to share that it's one of the integrative modalities. Will everyone listening love all of Ayurveda? No. But I'm here to highlight Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine, homeopathic medicine, chiropractic medicine, the suite of integrative modalities that we can all experience and utilize at different times. But I truly believe the Ayurveda lifestyle is one that we can start to incorporate as a rhythm that we then build everything else upon.
So interesting. Before we continue, a quick word from Wave. Wave Business Excellence Footprint is an environmentally friendly training and consulting company focused on practical skills in process improvement, leadership, organizational transformation, and sustainability. We offer Lean Six Sigma certifications at all levels, helping professionals improve processes, solve problems, and create measurable impact in their organizations. We also help companies apply the neuroscience of change based on the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza to increase employee engagement, collaboration, creativity, productivity, and ultimately business results. To learn more, visit www.wave-bef.com. I'm a very curious person, so I like asking many
Yeah.
detailed questions, and I'm very analytical. I'm just thinking about now we're getting into the summertime in Europe, and I know that the days become much, much longer. So it gets dark only like at 10:30 at night. And I'm just thinking if somebody is saying, well, in the winter, maybe I go to bed a bit earlier, but in the summer, I cannot go to sleep when the sun is still out. So how does that fit to the circadian rhythm? Does that mean that during the summer we have maybe less sleep and during the winter we have more, or how does that fit in usually?
Ayurveda is very flexible. I teach it as the really strict rules because it's easier to teach it that way. But there is a lot of ability to kind of flex with nature. It's a rhythmic system. So, for example, if in the winter everything's darker earlier, and we really honored that, we would be more in hibernation mode. We'd understand we're actually less supported to detox in the winter. We're actually in accumulation mode. Versus in the summer, we're actually meant to just relax more. So I always love going to Italy in the summer. I studied abroad in Italy in college, so I have a big obsession with Italy. And it feels like my other home place other than India on this planet. And when I go to Italy, the food is like sourced from Mount Etna, the most beautiful, rich food. You have a blue zone in Italy. Everyone's just so happy eating the cleanest food on earth. You're not in the mode of detoxing. So you can be in this season of enjoyment and relaxation, and that also is healthy. So if that 10 o'clock rule moves by an hour at night, in the season where the accumulation is not happening anyways. So is the detox quite as rigid or necessary? Not quite as much. And so it's really about understanding your own body, understanding your own elemental design. I happen to be a Pitta body type, a fiery body type. And so I have to slow down for the summer or else it leads to burnout. And so I always make sure I go to Italy, eat the best food on earth, relax. Going to Europe is a whole different vibe. And then it's okay if we're pushing bedtime a little in these things because so much of the rest of everything is in rhythm. And so really it's about that understanding.
That's right. That's right. And usually in the summer, one is more relaxed. And then as you have less of that emotional stress, then at least you can push it a little bit more, that you have maybe a little bit less sleep than you do usually in the winter. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
It's
Nice.
the balance.
Yeah.
It's the balance.
Very nice. Yeah. And the other thing which I liked was that explanation how you made that connection between yes, being healthier equals being happier, but at the same time, if that has everything to do with our planet, because if we are taking care of our planet, the planet can produce more, say, the biodiversity of the ground, of the earth of the planet is producing fruits and vegetables and foods that are giving us more diversity in our gut flora. And that means that if the planet is healthy, we are healthy as well. And if we are healthy, then we are happy. So somehow it just all surrounds around those topics that we have here in this podcast. It's like, wow.
Yeah, as I watch this planet right now as an Ayurvedic practitioner and I teach about Ayurveda all around the world. I love doing, speaking and keynote speaking and these things. It's so concerning because, when pandemic happened, there was this moment where all of a sudden they talked about we can see dolphins in the canals in Venice. Yeah. We can see nature coming back in all these places because humans pulled back from being everywhere. And humans pulled back from our level of activity in all these different places and waterways of the earth. And I thought, wow, can we learn from this moment? Can we learn that there's a symbiotic relationship, symbiosis with nature, and nature needed time to heal? And could we create more opportunities for nature to heal? Because when nature heals, we heal. What did most of us do? I shouldn't say all. I mean, the planet went through a lot in pandemic, but I live in the United States in Florida. And in Florida, we had a pretty open mindset about the pandemic here. And the attitude was kind of like, if you live your healthiest and best life, you will be better off in this. So we were going to the beach and going to the park and moving more in nature than ever. And when I sat down and thought of pandemic, I thought, okay, I have these young children. What am I going to do to keep them healthy? And the voice inside of me said, we live according to our circadian rhythm and we move in nature as much as possible. And nature knows how to heal all things. Yeah. But for us to keep that faith that nature knows how to heal all things, we have to leave nature healthy too. Or how is it going to support us? And so I think so much about our plastic pollution, what we're doing to the oceans. The oceans are heating up as we live in this very protein forward society where everyone's saying, I need more beef, chicken, fish, all these things. Do we not see that we're burning down the rainforest and heating up the oceans? And in the long run, how will we get to survive? I have a mentor once on my podcast who said, he's a gut health expert. He said, we are microbial beings living in an antimicrobial world. And that message landed so hard because I thought, gosh, you're right. When I go to the airport or run around through office buildings for meetings and I use their soap, that very well could be antibacterial soap. And what do I have inside of me? A gut microbiome made of trillions of bacteria, more cells than my own body. And that gut health is more important than anything else. But I'm putting poison on myself that could impact it. That's so illogical. And I think that same level of illogical thinking is what we are using when we directly harm the planet. My daughter, she's 15 now, has created an initiative called Pennies for Penguins. And she worked so hard to save the penguins. And then she created something called E-Waste Revolution. And I was so excited to do it with her because I thought if we understood that electronic waste is also polluting our landfills, waterways, and thus the ocean, we would pay more attention to these opportunities we have to create societal change, to create systemic change, to support the longevity of the planet. And right now the term longevity is so big in the health and wellness space. But longevity of planet directly impacts your longevity. We can't outpace what we're doing to the planet right now. And we have to understand what that means for total human longevity as well.
Absolutely. Wow, that's so beautifully put. As you were describing about what planet Earth is going through right now, Gaia, she's also in a state of inflammation because the waters are heating up, the oceans are heating up, the temperature is rising. So Mother Earth is also having an inflammation.
Mother Earth has an inflammation problem, and we are the root cause of it. And what are we going to do about it? We can't burn down her forests, take away all natural preserves, and throw everything into our waterways and then pollute her oceans and expect her to make it. It's insane the way we think right now. That's why I support youth activism, youth environmentalism so much. I truly believe they're so passionate and it's our job to support these movements and this understanding. I attended TED Vancouver last year and so many of the speakers at TED were talking about the environment and different systemic approaches to saving the environment that are very powerful. I mean, we could, between seaweed, carbon sinks, there's a lot of viable systemic opportunities to support the planet right now. And I think it's just about creating that awareness and supporting those movements.
Absolutely. One of the topics that can reduce inflammation, so that's now my next rabbit hole that we're going to go deeper into, about what can we do to reduce inflammation once we know that we have it, is one of those also to be more connected to Earth, meaning that to do some grounding. Could grounding also have some effect on our body to reduce inflammation?
Absolutely. You know, It's one of the biggest things we forget is how interconnected we are with the planet. Just putting your feet in the grass, putting your feet in the sand. It's interesting. My backyard has no grass. And I called the landscaper and I said, I need a patch of grass upon which I can sit every morning and do my meditation and get grounded. Because I don't necessarily want to go sit in my nightgown in the front yard, but I'll do it in the backyard. And so it's so simple, but we are connected to the planet. We know we're going to get those positive electrons. We're going to have that interconnection. You know, Ayurveda is very much health, but it's also spiritual. And so if we're open to that side of it, I don't teach that side of it as often, but the meditation, yoga, deep breathing, grounding piece, that can, of course, be an integral piece of us winning at our health. Because if we're disconnected from nature in that way, how can we possibly build the level of health that we want or have our cells vibrate at their optimal level?
That's right. That's something that my wife and I, we started a couple years back to do much more grounding. We tried many, many different things because we are testing everything that our speakers are saying in the Health, Happiness, and Planet podcast. So we're just trying it out ourselves. And we had somebody speak about grounding. And personally, I could see that after workouts, I could recuperate much quicker. I have better focus throughout the day. All our body is just more relaxed because we're just walking a lot barefoot. So that means that we're already getting that acupressure on the soles of our feet. Then the topic you just mentioned about putting the hand sanitizer and just killing all those microbes. When you go a lot barefoot, then you are actually having the contact with the microbes, with the earth. And somehow I just feel that my immune system got better because since we've been now grounding 7 years, we have not had the regular flu that we usually get every year. So we're like, that's interesting. And even though people say, oh, but you're getting your feet dirty, I'm like, yeah, but since I got my feet dirty, I'm feeling much better. It's
Yeah,
like amazing.
exactly. Exactly. We live in such a sterile world. And it's just funny, right? We forget that dirty feet actually means healthier gut and
Yeah.
healthier body. And it's so simple and it's free. And
Yeah.
and that's one thing I love about Ayurveda is I'd say 95% of what I teach is free.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote the book. I was like, please understand everything free you can do for your health right now. And then, yes, there's some 5% I'm going to talk about where there's teas and herbs and supplements and spices that can do the bigger lift when it comes to like getting those results faster. Because we're living in modern day life. So oftentimes we want those fast, quick results, or maybe we're in a state of such dysregulation, sickness, inflammation, and struggle that we need to reach for those bigger toolkits.
Yeah.
But if we just did the free, easy, and built that into rhythm, we might not end up in that place where we need the bigger tools.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with that, I think it's a beautiful cliffhanger. I'm super now curious. Could we dive into that topic? Which are those other things that you say, okay, this could really help us to reduce our inflammation?
Absolutely. So I was doing my master's in Ayurvedic sciences and I was sitting in the herbology class and the professor started going over each and every spice and its benefits. He talked about cinnamon and how cinnamon is so good when we talk about insulin sensitivity, reducing that blood sugar. Talked about coriander, which is cilantro, but we use a lot of coriander seeds crushed in our cooking in India, and that's a heavy metal detoxer, the more cilantro you use. Talked about cumin. Cumin seeds we use heavily, and so many cultures do. Cumin seeds support digestion of food. It's why it's in most Indian foods, because we want that vegetable or lentil or bean to really digest into the system. Then he got to ginger. Ginger's so good for digestive health, digestive lining, digestive fire. So many multiple benefits. And when the professor got to turmeric the spice, I was shocked at the benefits. I was like, are you kidding me right now? This one spice could have saved me 20 years of heartache in my health. Because turmeric is antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant. So I sat there and I was like, if that was true, why as a society are we not all in every single doctor's office all day saying you should take turmeric for that? And so my advisor ended up telling me you should do a PhD, which I thought was insane. It's such a big body of work to do. But I ended up doing my PhD dissertation on turmeric the spice, which made me just a further evangelist of the power of that one spice. And so once I finished my PhD on it, I realized this has such multi-level, multi-systemic applications for the body. And so when we talk about inflammation, turmeric is definitely my number one favorite to go after inflammation. It's a very powerful tool. What most people don't realize is they're taking fresh turmeric and they're juicing it. Some people do get benefits from that. They're turmeric ginger shots, things like that. But in ancient India, we didn't use fresh turmeric. We maybe pickled it, used it as a pickle, but we didn't really use it heavily in the food. We took that raw turmeric and dried it into a spice. And so kitchen culinary turmeric, the spice, is very useful. You can use it in your cooking. Most people here in the United States say to me, I sprinkle it on my chicken, I sprinkle it on my eggs, I eat some turmeric. And I always say that's not the right way to do it. If you're going to use that spice, always cook it with healthy fat or a black pepper. Black pepper, we know, increases the absorption of turmeric by 2,000%. Or the healthy fat helps it cross the blood-brain barrier and it increases its absorption as well. And
Yeah.
so just remember that when we're using regular kitchen turmeric.
Yeah. So
Now,
healthy fats, would it be like coconut oil or would it be other type of?
exactly. You can use
Mhm.
coconut oil, butter, ghee, olive oil, just none of the seed oils that
Mm.
exist,
Yeah.
canola oil and all those bad industrial oils that are just industrial byproducts that they're trying to find a sale for, and thus they sell them for us in our bodies. So silly. So just the good oils that exist, the healthy fats. And then when it comes to the plant turmeric, only 3 to 5% of it is the curcuminoids. And the curcuminoids is what we've studied and realized is the most effective part of the turmeric plant when it comes to reducing inflammation. And so we take those 3 curcuminoids, and in my case, I realized that if we're not giving it at the right proportion, at the right potency, if we're not third-party testing, if we're not watching how we're sourcing it, how are we going to help people? So once I finished my PhD, everyone who asked me, like, I have a knee problem, I have hip pain, I have back pain, I'm getting a cold, I would say, you can take turmeric for that. And then they'd say, whose should I buy? And I could never figure out who to recommend because I went to the health food store, I'm looking at the labels. There's probably 10,000 different turmerics on the market at this point. Amazon, everywhere sells them. But what I learned was there's a lot of variation in quality, in production. And you never really know, did someone make that product or are they just private labeling it or what's happening? And so I was approached by a group of doctors who said, if you made your own, because you're the PhD, we would trust you. And so I ended up making my own for doctors' offices.
Wow,
And my
amazing.
dream was all of Western medicine would start saying, you can take turmeric for that. And I started with orthopedics because when I went to orthopedics, when I had pain for plantar fasciitis, for example, they said, you can just take NSAIDs for 10 days and you'll be fine. And so way back in the day before my PhD, I did that. I took NSAIDs for 10 days, 24/7. And that's what they said. You'll win at plantar fasciitis. You'll be done. I go back 10 days later. I was like, guys, thank you. I'm pain-free for this moment. But now every time I eat food, my stomach hurts. They said, oh, that's normal. That's a side effect. I said, that's an unacceptable side effect.
Yeah.
I'm the queen of my gut health. Do you know what I've done for 20 years and what I invested? I didn't know that that would be a side effect that I would have to pay. And so that's why I started with orthopedics, was
Yeah.
let me make something so powerful and potent, orthopedics can use it and help people. And that's been my work for 11 years, is just working with doctors, speaking at their conferences, educating them. And then eventually I took it online and teach about it to everybody because I want everyone to understand the power of turmeric and ginger and boswellia, amla, these herbs used in synergies that can really help us.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Especially now, if I think about, again, a key word that you mentioned when they say, oh, that's just a side effect. Sometimes I even think about, are you sure that's a side effect or that's a direct effect? Yeah, because it's like, there's so many medicines that one can purchase, which you know that will have an effect on that. Yeah, so it's, even though they sell it as a side effect, but it's more like a direct effect. Yeah.
It's like I'm going to give you a benefit, and
Yeah,
alongside I will give you a opposite benefit, like a harm, but I'll call
exactly.
it a side effect, right? I mean, that's my experience of my whole life. It's
Yeah.
the reason I teach what I teach is I paid such a price for everything I took my whole life. I couldn't bear for anyone else to suffer that way. And now when I meet people, they're like, oh, you were born in the early 80s? That's us too. We all took antibiotics heavily. So that means we all have gut microbiomes that need work. We all need to apply this wisdom. And so what I love is turmeric, ginger, all of these are very pro gut health.
Yeah.
So you kicked us off asking, if we did nothing, would our guts heal? No, not really. But there is an entire class of herbs and spices that if we incorporated them, you could have fresh ginger lemon tea every day. That's a gut
Yeah.
healing habit. You could take a turmeric supplement every day. These are supplements and tools that support healing leaky gut, support keeping our good microbiome in place, but getting rid of all the bad naturally, which I love. Turmeric is this ultimate janitor. So it goes into the body and clears out senescent cells and malignant cells and zombie cells and bad bacteria, bad fungi, bad viruses.
Wow.
And so it's kind of like this defense warrior shield I prayed for my whole life. And now I have it, which to me is so exciting that I can give that to others.
Outstanding. I think this is the great moment to ask, because I know that many people don't even have the time with their busy lives to go to the supermarket and getting all these different ingredients and somehow to think, okay, how am I going to incorporate that into my foods? So if you're in that busy mode and you have to travel a lot, then that's, I think, where a lot of your products come very handy. So could you give us maybe a more of an insight on the products that you have and which are the moments that we should be using them?
For sure. So I created a product called Turmeric Gold that I consider a daily preventive, a support we can use to just reduce the chronic low-grade inflammation we all struggle with on a daily basis and get it into a more manageable state. Then I made one called Inflammation Relief, which is a synergy of the herbs from Ayurveda to really look at inflammation. So if you are in pain, if you are struggling, all of a sudden you take this synergy of herbs. It has guduchi, boswellia. When we take the synergies, we're approaching inflammation from multiple directions to help reduce it. And so that combination of two formulas is the majority of what I do. And so all my doctors recommend both to the patients. And then they're like, no patients come back to us for their chronic joint pain. Like, we get to just see the next patient who needs a surgery or something more serious.
Yeah.
But you've kind of naturally handled that group who really needed a natural solution. And many people can't even take NSAIDs. So there's a whole group of people there who don't want to take NSAIDs or can't take them, who are served by that. But then I realized if we don't sleep well, we won't win at inflammation. And so I created a deep sleep tea using all the herbs from Ayurveda. So ashwagandha, brahmi, osmanthus, cardamom, like a beautiful synergy of herbs. Anyone who lives in Europe or Asia has more of a habit of drinking tea. And we have such potent medicinal benefits when you use the whole plant and let it unfold into a tea and allow that to be the remedy. So I made deep sleep tea. I made one called Unwind, which reduces anxiety and cortisol and stress in the system. I made one called Menopause Support Tea. We're going through a season where hot flashes, night sweats, and menopause need more tools to serve them. And so I just keep going from there. I made a sleep gummy that helps people fall asleep and stay asleep. I do a lot of business travel and speak across the US. And so I use my sleep gummies, especially for like jet lag and getting proper sleep before big events. So that's kind of the whole product line. It's 3 gummies, 4 teas, and my 2 turmeric formulas so
Nice.
far. And then I want to keep using the herbs of Ayurveda and creating solutions for us.
Beautiful. For those who are outside of the US, can we also purchase your products?
I have not opened up shipping outside the US yet because
Okay.
there's a lot of different rules in every country around
Yeah.
supplements. But
Oh,
as we grow, that's my hope as we can ship
perfect.
worldwide.
Very good. Okay, so we will be waiting very patiently over here. Whoever is outside of the US, those who are in the US, then you can already do the purchase. And I will put that into the show notes. And I think there's also a specific code that you will be able to provide for the US.
Yes, I made a special code. HHP15 will give them 15% off at fusionaryformulas.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I've been hearing quite a lot recently, and I'm thinking, okay, why am I hearing the same type of observation from people who are around my scope? And they say that for some reason they're waking up at 3 in the morning. And I'm thinking, like, oh, interesting. I thought, okay, this is the perfect moment to ask Dr. Shivani, what could that be?
For sure. So, according to Ayurveda, we're really meant to focus on sleep as one of our most anchor important pillars of health. And a lot of times nowadays, we're doing so much that's anti sleep. We're sedentary, we're not moving as much, the body isn't as tired. We might not have created enough sleep pressure. So, for example, waking up in the morning, seeing that sunlight, allowing it to hit our eyes, and kicking off our circadian clock for the day. If we haven't been doing that, the body might not be as supported. We know as we're aging, we're going to tend towards more inflammation, more oxidation in the system. And so the body needs more support than ever. And we teach a lot about these sleep hygiene rituals before bedtime. So one includes cutting off dinner 3 hours before bed. I'll say 3 hours because I know in Europe you guys do sleep later. So 3 hours before bed. In America, for me, that means dinner by 7 because I will sleep by around 10:30. And then when it comes to sleep hygiene, we talk about cutting off laptop and work and all those things 2 hours before bed. I would say for the West, even 1 hour before bed would be great because here in America, we're all workaholics. I know in Europe, you guys all have much better work-life balance, most of you at least. And so it's really about shutting down the work life so that your brain is not chewing on it as you're going to sleep. Because many of us are really processing all that work. And so if you go to the restroom in the middle of the night, sometimes those are the first thoughts that pop up, and then you cannot go to sleep. And then it's also really about that mindfulness practice. So before bed, if we can stretch out the body so we're not as tight going to sleep, if we can journal and really do a brain dump before bed and get everything out of our minds, that really supports us for when we're sleeping. And then also watching how are we maintaining our fasting. So in Ayurveda, we taught about a 12 to 14 hour fast. Sleep by 7, wake up by 7, eat your meal. Right now, I wouldn't say all, most of us are playing with some bigger fasts than that, 14-hour, 16-hour, 18-hour fasts. And so it's really about paying attention. Are you supporting your blood sugar levels? Or have you been on a sugar and caffeine roller coaster all day? And then by the time you go to sleep, when you hit 2, 3 in the morning, is your body's blood sugar tanking so low that as a protective measure, it's waking you up and you're hungry, or your body needs some support and we're just not giving it the support it needs in the rhythm that it needs. And so for all of you who are waking up at 2, 3 in the morning, I'm sorry, because I know how hard that is. I have a sleep gummy that I keep next to my bed because that happens to me once or twice, maybe per year. And when it does, I need to go back to bed and get those last few hours of sleep, or I'm not a nice person the next day to my kids or my team. So I'm like, I need solutions ready in case that happens. But I would recommend watching, like, do we need more healthy fats in our day? Do we need more protein? Have we moved the body enough to create sleep pressure so that we sleep through the night? Because menopause alone to women will do that. We know that estrogen tanking will do it. And so we're kind of building a society right now that's not sleeping well. And what's crazy about it is we're going to be more inflamed. We're going to be more tired. We're going to reach for those carbs and sugar more when that happens. And then we're really putting ourselves into these catch-22 loops that are not helpful.
Exactly. Thank you so much for giving a good, I would say, answer that I can now provide to my family members around me, because they were thinking like, why is this happening? It didn't happen before, and maybe it's something, but okay, these are definitely very, very good points that they can work on and to see if that improves. And there is now the final question, and it's the same question I ask all my guests since the last 3.5 years since I have this podcast. It is, what is your definition of happiness? Everybody gives me a different answer. I'm super curious to see what is your answer, your definition of happiness.
My definition of happiness is when I feel my absolute healthiest and most aligned in my body. When I go to a yoga class, right after, there's these moments of pure bliss where I feel aligned and joyful and like my entire vibration can serve all of humanity. That to me is happiness.
Wow, that is such a nice definition. Thank you for thank you for that. I've enjoyed so much this conversation we had today. I mean, the hour went again super fast, but I'm sure it was a lot of impulses for our listeners. I'm sure that some of them maybe know some things, others have heard some things today for the first time. They might be going down that rabbit hole. But the cool thing is that there is that book. At least the book is available everywhere in the world. You can have access to that and also get the solution. So if we do, those who are outside of the US and cannot buy now at the moment your product, but for that there's so many other solutions in your book that it can, as you said, it's all for free. We can access to all these tools and techniques that all of our ancestors and hundreds of years ago was being applied, and we can use it as well. We just need to remember. We just need to somehow know how was it that we did it in the past. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that, and also for the mission that you're on. This is so good to hear what experience you had growing up as a child and then becoming a teenager and then a grown-up, to say, okay, this is something that you definitely need to change the course of the health of many people, because if a person is healthy, then all the goals and all the talents that you came here with, then you can actually execute on that. But if you're not healthy, then you cannot even put your talent into action. You cannot put all of that soul's journey that came here to do into an outcome, because you're just dealing with all of your illnesses that you have. So that is super, super important. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you. We're so in alignment on that. So thank you.
Yeah. And I'm so much looking forward to perhaps someday to our next episode and to see how's the evolvement and also to see the advancement because you have also various companies that you're running. So I'm so grateful for all what you do, Dr. Shivani. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye bye. I hope today's conversation gave you a different perspective on inflammation and showed you that many of the most powerful health habits are actually the simplest ones. If you would like to learn more about Dr. Shivani Gupta, her book, The Inflammation Code, or her work, you'll find all of the links in the show notes. And if you would like to explore products from Dr. Shivani, you can use my discount code HHP15 when shopping at www.fusionaryformulas.com. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit from this conversation. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and let's take good care of ourselves and the planet we all share. Big hugs, everyone.